Assalamu alaikum and good evening. You are listening to a special tribute show about the late Shaykh Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib Rahmatullah alayh, with me Akil Khalil, and my guest tonight is their son Sufi Awais. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Akil.
We are live on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. You can listen to us online at salamradio.co.uk or watch the show live on our streaming services. Search for Salam Radio on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. If you prefer mobile, please download and use our Salam Radio app from the App Store or Google Play. Salam Radio is always on air 24/7, 365, uniting all communities. Please get involved in tonight's show by calling us on 01733 602 133, or you can text WhatsApp the show on 07745 278 978. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
This is an absolute honour for myself, and I know it's for yourself as well, that we've been given this opportunity tonight to do this show. So alhamdulillah, thanks for joining me in the studio.
You're welcome.
So to kick off the show, we have a brother Zoib Yaqub here from Bedford. The late Shaykh enjoyed
that's a
listening
good
to
attitude
him.
to take in life. Mine's sort of similar to Armin's in a way.
The late Shaykh enjoyed listening to him, and he will be reciting the same Naat a week before their passing. So without further ado, brother.
ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲ ਸੋਹਣਿਆ ਨਿਗਾਹਾਂ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲ ਸੋਹਣਿਆ ਨਿਗਾਹਾਂ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਦੱਸੋ ਮਨਜ਼ੂਰ ਹੈ ਦੱਸੋ ਮਨਜ਼ੂਰ ਹੈ ਦੁਆਵਾਂ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲ ਸੋਹਣਿਆ ਤੇ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦੇ ਬਿਮਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਦਾਰੂ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦੇ ਬਿਮਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਾਰੂ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਲਾਜ ਹੈ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਮਾਹੀ ਦਾ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਮਾਹੀ ਦਾ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦੇ ਬਿਮਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦੇ ਬਿਮਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਿਫਾਵਾਂ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲ ਸੋਹਣਿਆ ਨਿਗਾਹਾਂ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲ ਸੋਹਣਿਆ ਤੇਰੋ ਰੋ ਸਾਰੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਜੁਦਾਈਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਾਲੀਏ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਏ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਏ ਮਾਫ ਮਾਹੀ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਹਤਾਵਾਂ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲ ਸੋਹਣਿਆ
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair, brother. Really enjoyed that. I mean, off air we were discussing about the impact, in fact, he had on Hazrat Sahib's life.
Subhanallah, mashallah. Just a week before they passed away, Brother Zohaib had the opportunity especially to come and visit them in Peterborough at their home, and this is because he was travelling to Pakistan the following day,
Okay.
and he recited this same nasheed, same Naat Sharif,
MashaAllah.
and the lyrics in that Naat Sharif epitomizes what was going to happen over the next week or two on this last few days of the Sheikh's life about leaving this world,
Yeah.
only taking the good deeds that you have with you, and that's all you have to take into the grave. And when you're in the grave, about the questions the angels are going to ask you. So alhamdulillah, it summarizes the whole essence and the purpose of the great Shaykh Rahmatullah Alayhi's lifestyle in that one nasheed. And whilst we were in Pakistan, at their grave, at the Khatam, Isal Swab Khatam, Brother Zohaib had the opportunity to recite there on a daily basis, and it touched everyone's heart, alhamdulillah. So it's a memory we'll be keeping for the rest of our lives, inshallah.
No, we really enjoyed his company. That was beautiful. Listeners, and I'm sure we are aware there are plenty of people around the world also listening to this show as well. On tonight's show, we are remembering and paying tribute to the life and legacy of Shaykh Mohammed Yousaf Sahib. He meant a great deal to the local people of Peterborough. In fact, not just the Peterborough community and beyond. Myself, I personally knew Hazrat Sahib, for the best part of 27 years, as you know. I recall being introduced to them by my mother, actually, in 1991. And, I've got nothing but admiration for what happened, that followed the next 27 years. For me personally, he was a tremendously generous, kind-hearted, spiritual friend and teacher. And it was, great loss to the community with their sad passing last month now. It really affected so many people, didn't it, within the community. And, when we sat down and we were speaking about doing the show and looking back at their life and the amount of work, the good work that they did within Peterborough and across the UK as well, it really made us, step back and realise, what can be achieved by living, in this country and practicing Islam, and how both, having a job, a career, a family, can really work in harmony. It is an amazing example of someone who led by example and had a steadfast life in Islam.
Yeah, first of all, Brother Aki, I would just like to thank yourself, Brother Qasim, Salam Radio, for giving us an opportunity, a blessed opportunity to pay tribute to the life, works and legacy of a unique human being, a great friend of Allah, Hazrat Shaykh Khwaja Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib, Rahmatullah Alayh. I'm very blessed that I'm their son. I spent 40 years of my life from birth up until their final moments, and they weren't just a great father, but a brilliant role model, a great mentor, a wonderful teacher, a beautiful spiritual guide, and even a very close dear friend that you can share your feelings, your thoughts, your experiences, you talk to on a daily basis. And it wasn't just myself that looked up to them as a great role model, but everybody who's met them, who spent time in their company, whether it was young or old people, whether they were Muslim or non-Muslim, whether they were the reverts to Islam, whether they spent a day with them or spent 40 years with them, everybody was inspired because they were someone who were born in Pakistan in 1943 and at the age of 19 in 1964 came to the UK, as many people from Mirpur area, Dadial, Azad Kashmir, as labourers, as economic migrants to the UK. And they spent a year in Huddersfield, a year in Leeds, and then 10 years in Birmingham. And a lot of people probably don't know this in Peterborough, especially the young generation, but the Sheikh moved to Peterborough in 1981.
That's right.
On the instructions of his Grand Sheikh Khwaja Sufi Muhammad Aslam Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh. And when he moved here, he didn't know anybody at all.
That's right, absolutely. No friends, no family, just himself. It was yourself, wasn't it? In 1981, you moved to Peterborough, didn't you?
That's correct, yeah.
Yourself and your mum, you came to the city, you didn't know anybody. There was no other reason, as you just mentioned, to come to the city and, to just spread the message of Islam. And to try and encourage others to do the same. And I have to say, when you look back at their life, their lifespan from 1943 to 2018, and what they achieved from 1981 in just Peterborough alone, was testament to the fact that there were well in excess of 3,500 people at just their funeral. And we both know that you've had, and the family has had, continued copious amounts of messages of support and tributes and so on and so forth, because of the impact they had here. And for the benefit of our listeners, all the time that I spent with them, it didn't matter who you were, what background you had, whether you were Muslim or weren't Muslim. They always had time for you. They would sit down, they'll speak to you, and it was never, it was always natural. It was always about Islam. Even in their last moments, in the weeks leading up to their sad passing, they continuously propagated the message of Islam. And they did that all that time, from 1981, just in Peterborough alone.
Yeah, absolutely correct, Akil. You hit the nail on the head. From the moment they moved to Peterborough in 1981, I remember for 20 years they worked for British Rail. And
I still recall seeing them walking in West Town with their uniform on, and they'd be reading something, and then you'd bump into the street. And for the benefit of our listeners as well, the Sheikh was affectionately known as Khalifa Sahib in Peterborough. So you'd see all these young children, approach them. Oh, Khalifa Sahib, how you doing? And they'll be reading something. They'll be encouraging you to read something, and as soon as you'd meet them, they'd greet you, and then the next thing they'd say to you, well, are you going to be coming over later for zikr? And from that was the modus operandi for them, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the whole duration while they lived in Peterborough, and even in the UK, they never ever learned how to drive a car. So they were always traveling on foot patrol, where they went into the market, into town, where they went to the bank, where they went to shopping, where they went to read Jummah namaz. And we used to always think, like, why don't they learn to drive a car? Are they trying to save money or thinking about the environment? And it's only later on when we reflect on their life and think that the only reason they wanted to travel by foot is so they can meet fellow brothers, sisters, people on the street, and they can talk to them, and they wouldn't ever stop to have a conversation just gossiping about other people. There will always be a point to their conversation. They'll ask people how their loved ones were, how their family members were, that we haven't seen you in a zikr gathering or haven't seen you in the masjid recently, and that will inspire people.
Absolutely.
That a week later, that same person who'd probably been absent for a month or two will turn up at their door and say, look, when I met you last week, from that moment, they put like a fikr in people's heart, like start worry, like, what am I doing in my life? What's the purpose of my life, my time on this earth? And just whilst we were in Pakistan recently, and I spoke to the elder brother, and they said from a young age, the great Sheikh, he was given like a beautiful gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he had what's called tasir in his zaban. That whenever he said something, it had an impact on people, even if there were 2 or 3 words. He wasn't a man who'd talk for hours and hours, but those few words would touch people's heart.
Absolutely.
And make them reevaluate their life and try to come onto the straight and narrow path.
I agree with you. There was and within their arsenal of being able to communicate with people was the knowledge of Islam. The first time I heard about Allama Iqbal, was in 1991, sitting with them in Oldman's Drive, and I was a very young man then. Some of our listeners are watching me thinking he's an old man now, but yeah, I was a very, very young man then, and it was the first time I heard the name Allama Iqbal, or somebody said something about Qaid Azam. I didn't know who these people were. I had no real relation to it. We're British, we live here, and so they started speaking about poetry and things like that, and then you started learning about hadith from them, and then they would within one 30-second span, they would give you the hadith, they'd give you the Quran part, they'd give you a poetry line, and you were mesmerized, for want of a better word, not just with them, but what they were trying to teach you. And
they were an ocean of knowledge,
absolutely,
a sea of wisdom.
Yeah.
And again, it's something that didn't just stem like over the last 10 or 20 years of their life, but from childhood, even though they were from a rural part of Pakistan where literacy rates were very low. At a young age, they had a thirst for knowledge, and they would read books on Islam, they read the Quran, they studied the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, they studied the poetry, the life of Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah rahmatullah alayh. And before they came to the UK on the day of Jummah, they would, before the main imam would do his khutbah, they would actually come onto the mic and share that knowledge, whatever they learn. And this is at the age of 14, 15, 16. You would rarely see that in the UK today.
That's right.
And in their gatherings and on their daily life in the UK, whether it was at a khatam or someone's passed away or at a wedding, they'll always want to open up and share that knowledge. and they could relate to anybody, whether it's a young person, whether it's an intellectual, academic, a revert to Islam and a non-Muslim. They will always find a story or something to relate to help inspire that person and pass that knowledge on.
I totally agree with you. And, I know we spoke about this off air as well. I have to say, the first time I ever led a Jamaat was, with Hazrat Sahib. They taught us when we were young kids, 12, 13-year-olds. They were preparing us for a practical way of life of Islam, of how we can fulfill all our duties and live and be successful in a political way as well as in a social way. And I have nothing but fond memories. So many people who I've met, so many people have got stories, how they helped them, and as you mentioned earlier on as well, they were a friend. You could speak to them literally about anything. They never judged you. They'd always give you the best advice, and they would always think about you, your future. And it was just an amazing time, and it has left the wider community, and certainly people like yourself and everybody else. There's a hole now, isn't there?
Yes, it's a massive loss, not only for Peterborough or the community in the UK, but Muslims all over the world. There were so many people that they met in Hajj, they met whilst they were in Pakistan, or people who lived in Peterborough but then moved on, went to Europe, went to visit other countries. And one of the beautiful things, recently, my young son was 15 years old, and he said that every day, because of the last 4 or 5 years of their life, they weren't able to go to the masjid apart from Jummah, so they hold Jummah at home. So Asr, Maghrib and Isha. And they'll ask my young son and my nephew to lead the Jamaat prayers. And the children, at the time, they obliged and they led the prayers. But after the Sheikh left this world, they said, now we realize why the Sheikh used to put us on the prayer mat and ask us to lead namaz. Even though he was a great wali Allah, he wanted us to train us, want to become disciplined in our salah, to read the 5 salah regularly, no matter what time of the year it was, no matter how tired we were, whether it's a summer or the winter, and also to make us steadfast. He wanted to see it in his own lifetime, not only his children but his grandchildren. That's how far ahead he was. He wanted to leave a legacy that everybody benefited from, no matter how old or how young.
That's right. And with that in mind, actually, we have in 1981 he set up the first zikr hall in Peterborough. There are many elders from the local community who I've spoken to have said the same thing. Children would go to your house and they would be taught the Quran, and then later on there would be a zikr mehfil as well. And that's one thing that is completely synonymous with their lifetime, certainly here in Peterborough, that they were committed to helping young people change their lives through love and religion. And that's really, really important to stress here, that their way of assisting people and educating people, they never shouted at anybody, they never lost their rag because somebody didn't understand something. They were very patient, and it was through that love and time and care that they had for people. I find that many people were able to learn and develop because they had a genuine mentor.
Yeah, that's so correct. I remember as a young child, when they'd come home from working in the British Rail, quite a manual job and very labour intensive, so very physically demanding, and the first thing they'll do is take their overalls off, perform their wudu, and then their front room, different houses we've lived in different parts of Peterborough, but every front room didn't have any furniture, and they just had a prayer rug where people could come, learn the Quran, do Islamic study circles, and do the zikr. And this was people from all age groups. They didn't charge anything at all.
Yeah, that's right.
And later on, if those children grew up, went to university, went into professional career, they'll still reflect. And they said that the great love and affection the Sheikh showed when he was teaching them just the basics of Quran, he said they took that teaching with them the rest of their lives, and that gave them a firm steadfastness in Islam.
MashaAllah, that's great. And I have to say, the other thing for me as well was, I recall being 11 years old, walking into that prayer hall and not seeing any furniture, and I was a little bit, I was thinking, what's going on here? I was too young to probably think, do they have any money or not? But it was just really weird, and that's really when I learned, to sit down in a circle and do zikr and things like that. So, mashallah, great memories. It's certainly bringing back a lot. It's flooding to my mind, taking me back, to the very early 90s. I'll tell you what we have, brother. We have a caller on the line. And I'm just going to patch them in. Bear with me 1 second. Here we go. Assalamu alaikum. You are live on Salam Radio. Brother, can you introduce yourself?
Is that me, yeah?
Sufi Shaheen, I'm being told by the station manager. Sufi Shaheen, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, salam. How you doing, bro?
Alhamdulillah. Yourself?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much.
Good. For the benefit of our listeners, brother, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, most... I can say basically where we are, our family are roughly born of Irish descent, and I'm the second, third generation of Irish people to come to this country. Basically, we grew up in a small town in Lincoln. Basically, although Lincoln has become very big at the moment, but back in the 60s when I was born, in 1962, it was a very small one-horse town, basically, and that's where we grew up. And I spent most of my time there, but until I got into my early 20s, where I did a lot of travelling around the world. Okay. I lived in Australia and travelled through Europe and around Asia, and then moved back to Lincoln, and then moved again to London, and came back in 1995.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about your journey into Islam?
My journey into Islam, most of my life I've spent basically is in a boxing environment, okay. Like I don't know, how would you put it, a violent type of upbringing sort of thing, and back in 96, 97. Was a time for me where I didn't want this life anymore, and I become very depressed. So I started drinking quite a lot, and violence sort of increased. Not through me, but because of the environment I lived in, I wanted to get away from.
So you were in a lot of difficult times. So were you being reflective at the time as well, thinking how where is my life going?
Yeah, that was the thing. And I instead of going out with all my friends to drinking and all the rest of it, and to, I used to be in a gang as well, a football hooligan gang, which I spent 20 years doing that as well.
And how did that? From those experiences, what actually led you taking to the Shahada?
Basically, how I got away from all that was I just something in my heart just told me I need to get away from this. It's just something. I think it's all praise be to Allah, who puts guidance, who puts the way forward to a human being. Okay. And alhamdulillah, I just happened to work in a place where there was another Muslim who was also a revert. Okay. Yeah. A convert to Islam. Yeah. And he had the sort of same upbringing as myself. Okay. And we got together through the blessings of Allah, and he started to tell me about his life and how he'd completely turned himself around and made his life peace, got peace in his life.
And that must have been very, very attractive to you then.
That was exactly what that was like, oh my God, it was like, this is what I've been looking for. Tell me more. My everything was. I used to go to work just wanting to hear more about this beautiful religion of Islam.
Okay, and that led you to take. Was it with him, or did you? What actually led you to take the Shahada?
He said to me. I asked him where did you get all these beautiful teachings and your loveliness from? You're peaceful. He said, let me take you to this to a person that that has installed all this beauty in me through Islam. So alhamdulillah, I think it was late 97, he took me to Peterborough. Okay. And sorry?
Yeah, keep going. Yep.
He took me to Peterborough, and this is what when I met these people, this is completely out of my the way I was brought up. You know, it was a totally different way. It was a Muslim way. But when I set eyes on Sufi Yousaf Sahib, alhamdulillah, this man radiated a man with a beautiful, calm soul.
Subhanallah. And mashallah, and I know we're heading actually towards the azan break at the moment, so we've run out of time, unfortunately. And many brothers have concurred the same message about Sufi Yousaf Sahib, and they were a man of God, and just being in their company and spending time with them, and what you've just said there, Brother Shaheen, is something which many brothers have echoed the same. And unfortunately, we have actually run out of time, but Jazakallah khair for calling into the studio, brother.
Yeah, just like to add
this
to.
gift is it will never.
We're heading towards the azan. Please stay tuned. We'll be back. Salam.
You're listening to Salam Radio, and it's now time for Asr Azan.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم، وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم بك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك المصير. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت.
Peterborough's community radio station, Salam Radio, 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our special tribute show about the late Shaykh Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib rahmatullah alayhi, with myself, Akil Khalil, and my guest is his son, Sufi Awais Sahib. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Akil.
Thanks for staying tuned with us, listeners. It's been an emotional show so far. We have more guests and more speakers who are going to get involved for the remainder of the show as well. I have to say, those memories are still with me. Really, really happy memories. With us with the studio right now, listeners, we have Sufi Badr here. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thanks for joining us as well. Obviously, you've been sitting with the Sheikh actually for how many years?
Since 2010.
2010, yeah. MashaAllah. That's a long time when you think about it now. And just for the benefit of our listeners, actually, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Badr Munir. I've lived in Peterborough pretty much all my life. Studied at Nottingham University for 3 years. But live, work, my family is all based in and around Peterborough. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. And, obviously everybody's had varying experiences with the late Sheikh. And I wanted to ask you, what's your fondest memory of this?
Well, the first time I met them when I was about 7 years of age, I've got very vague memories. I do remember them walking about in Peterborough, like Sufi Sahib mentioned. But I would say the highlight and the main thing would be in Ramzan 2010. Myself and a couple of few of the brothers got the opportunity to go to Umrah Sharif, and we spent the last 10 days in Medina Sharif. We did the Eid al-Fitr there, and it was beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And so the first memory would be them. The Sheikh was actually our group leader. We were looking to make some plans, make some changes in our life. Okay. And we heard that this particular person, as you say, fondly known as Khalifa Sahib.
Yes, that's right.
They were taking a group of people, so we thought, we'll join. We'll see how it goes. I was really excited, really nervous at the same time. Alhamdulillah, we got a chance to spend the time, 18 days in total, in the room of the Sheikh as well. So we got to see what they were like, not necessarily just in the prayer time, what they were like in the mornings and the evenings, in between everything else as well.
MashaAllah. And, I think you'll agree with me as well. I mean, nothing changed from that moment onwards, did it?
It just got better.
Alhamdulillah. Subhanallah, mashallah. And mashallah, thanks for that. You know what, actually, brother, just stay there with us. We have another call in the studio right now. So I'm just going to pass that brother in. I believe it's Sufi Shahid. Assalamu alaikum, brother. You're live on Salam Radio?
Wa alaikum salam. Can you hear me, brother?
We can, yes. Jazakallah for calling. You want to share your experience?
Yes, of course. Alhamdulillah. I would like to thank yourself and your team to be hosting Sufi Awais Sahib on this program to talk about the tribute of his father and what a legacy he left. Alhamdulillah, I'm born in this country. I live in Keighley within the Bradford district. And I would like to say that what a great loss it has been to all of us. But there's one thing which truly has made me understand that the beauty of Islam, sometimes people read books and they think they can find the real thing. But wallahi, until you do not have a man of God who can tell you these things, until you do not have a role model, until you don't have somebody who truly is a great person, in the sense that he is a follower of the Prophet ﷺ, I don't really think you can get the authenticity. Because alhamdulillah, Khwaja Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib is a very big, I would say, a true Sufi, which is very hard to find nowadays. The meaning of Sufi, I have seen many clerics throughout the Bradford. I have spent many years traveling. Well, alhamdulillah, this is one person that I can put my hand on my heart that has really had a great impact upon my life and the life of many people throughout the UK. Khwaja Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib is truly a true gladiator of the Sufi. He is a real heavyweight of the Sufi world. His muhabbat, his love has attracted so many. And like Sufi Awais was saying, that throughout Europe and Pakistan, the beauty of it is that many people who knew Khwaja Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib will have all taken something from Khwaja Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib.
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah,
Absolutely.
What I've taken from Khwaja Sufi Mohammed Yousaf Sahib is I've taken the muhabbat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has given me the understanding and the closeness to the Prophet of Allah. If a person can take me and bring me to the Masalla and make me a person to love Rasulullah, because we all have love for the Prophet, but there are certain degrees of how you love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
I totally agree with you, brother. And I do apologise for interjecting, but actually we've got quite a few calls coming into the studio right now. And I'll just say Jazakallah khair for your call. We really appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum. I believe you have Dr. Imran on from Surrey.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. You're live on Salam Radio. Thanks for calling in. Did you want to share your experiences?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, very blessed to have this opportunity to pay my respect.
Sorry, brother, can you just speak a little bit louder? Just we find the listeners going to find it a little bit difficult to understand.
So, assalamu alaikum, brothers. I'm calling from Surrey. I'm just out of the hospital, so the line might not be that good here.
I understand. I think that's the story for all hospitals, actually, there, brother.
Just wanted to say that, subhanallah, Hazrat Sahib, they I had the blessing and the opportunity to visit them 1 week prior to their departure, and alhamdulillah, they are, the words can't really, whatever word anyone says, truly you can't really, it's not justified to their level. They get it. So, alhamdulillah, if it's alright, I wanted to recite a verse of the Quran that I read to them on the week that I visited.
Yeah, please do, please do.
And the meaning of that verse is just amazing. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that how He tested Ibrahim alayhi salam, so therefore he could be, an imam, a leader. So I wanted to read that just to, pay my tribute, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات فأتمهن قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما قال ومن ذريتي قال لا ينال عهد الظالمين صدق الله العظيم.
Subhanallah, mashallah. Do you know what, brother, before you say anything else, I just want to say you have got one of the most beautiful voices, and I recall being in a mehfil when Hazrat Sahib were alive, and they were totally blown away by your voice, and I have to say that feeling is certainly something I concur with. It's an amazing, brother.
Alhamdulillah, I've been very blessed that, at least, I could recite in front of them and towards them. So I feel very fortunate that, that I had the opportunity to read and to recite the Quran in front of such a person. So may Allah accept. And,
Ameen. Jazakallah khair for your call. We have got a copious amounts of telephone calls coming into the studio. We are going to try and get through some more, but our station manager's doing his best to try and control what's actually happening. But Jazakallah khair for calling in.
Jazakallah.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, obviously we both know Dr. Saab, and I think it's fair to say that the Sheikh I adored him, and you can tell the feeling was reciprocated.
Absolutely, and it's beautiful that Dr. Imran, and he's a living testimony to the kind of people that the Sheikh reached out to. So he's a junior doctor in Surrey, very busy working in the A&E department, but still took time out, come and visited the Sheikh, sat in his company and gained guidance. And alhamdulillah, whilst in that professional environment, he is leading Jummah prayer at the hospital as part of his studies when he went to Antigua for a year's practicing at the local hospital there. Alhamdulillah, he held Islamic circles there, and it was an opportunity where people who sat with the Sheikh, wherever they travelled in the world, they've got so much wisdom and guidance and love to share. So in the words of someone that, even though Shaykh Shaykh Mohammed Yousaf Sahib rahmatullah alayhi physically have left this world, but they left so many copies and models of them who alhamdulillah are carrying on their legacy, and that's in all walks of life.
Subhanallah. And brother, obviously we got interrupted there with the call. I was going to ask you, is there any? Can you recall of any advice they gave to you? Obviously, you're young, and there is an age gap between you. But I myself saw the friendship you had, and there must have been something they gave to you, like a little bit about how to conduct yourself, in life and so on and so forth.
Subhanallah, although there was a probably 30-40 year gap in age and understanding, their level of intelligence, their overall life experience was totally different, but they really understood what we needed for younger people with young families themselves, alhamdulillah, have wife, children. So how to become an actual role model yourself, how to not just sit there in awe of them, but actually go out and inspire other people, actually you have that influence in your own families.
I still recall them saying these things, trying to encourage us to be actual citizens, not just in Peterborough, global citizens, taking ownership of our education in Islamic world, political world, social world. And that was something magical about it. It's quite unique, really, isn't it? They had this, there was something special about them, where people, no matter what age they were seeking counsel from them.
I remember Brother Badr there was a young brother, some of you might know him, and at the age of 16 he lost his mother in Peterborough, and then he fell out with his dad and he got kind of kicked out the house, so he was homeless. And what the Sheikh did was he took him under his wing, he gave him guidance and arranged for a flat for him to be accommodated with the help and support of the other brothers. And then said to him, like, what I want you to do is go back into education. So he went back to college, did his A-levels, and then qualified as a MOT tester, started up his own business, and now he's got married, he's got children. And he texted me today and saying, I just want to, I can't repay the Sheikh enough by sorting out my life, otherwise it was in a downward spiral. I didn't know where I would have ended up if I didn't have his guidance. So he guided him not only just spiritually on the path of Islam, but also took care of his materialistic needs, took care of his, giving him direction for him to focus for the rest of his life. And alhamdulillah, the benefit of that was that at the end of it, the brother, he patched things up with his father, and alhamdulillah, they're a united family again.
MashaAllah, and there's many examples of this, isn't there? We are getting inundated with calls and text messages into the studio at the moment. We are, listeners, going to try our best to try and whittle through these. We have a text message that's come in just now. It is anonymous. I will quote as best as I can from it. The person says, I would like to say how Hazrat Sufi Yousaf changed my life. I grew up in the mosque until I was 18, but still never used to pray. May Allah Ta'ala forgive me, but I met them accidentally. They invited me to the house for a zikr mehfil, showed me so much love and how to do zikr, and before I knew it, I was on the righteous path, and I am asking my family and others to do the same. And the text ends with, may Allah Ta'ala give them the highest maqam in Jannah. And I know that the texter wants to remain anonymous. Jazakallah khair for texting. There's many messages like this coming in. I'm delighted to actually say we have another brother in the studio at the moment. I've known this brother for the best part of almost 30 years. I've known him as Brother Arshad. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thanks for coming in. And can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all the people in the studio and all the listeners in Peterborough and wherever you are in the world right now. Yes, my name is Arshad Kayani, and I was born in Peterborough, and essentially I've known the Sheikh since 1993. My father, he passed away in February 1993, and I met the Sheikh in April, literally 6 to 8 weeks later in my life. At that time I was really distraught that my father, who I'd known all my life, had departed, and alhamdulillah, by the blessing of Allah Ta'ala guided me to meet this this pious individual who would later on guide me throughout the rest of my life in all areas of my life. So a little bit about what I do. I'm currently a senior inspector within the pharmaceutical industry with the du'as and blessings of Qibla Hazrat Sahib rahmatullahi. Essentially, my job, in fact, I travel all over the world, from the US to all over Europe, Middle East, and further afield. In fact, I've been to so many different countries, dozens and dozens over the last 20 years, and many times met so many people, Islamic and non-Islamic people, all walks of life. But today, I'd like to just reflect on and talk about a bit more about how meeting Hazrat Khwaja Sufi Yousaf Sahib rahmatullah in my life, as I can say how different they are. They're a unique individual, a unique spiritual person that no one had. Myself, I've been really blessed to meet them in my life.
Subhanallah. Yeah, I agree. Do you know what? And I know Brother Awais in the studio, he will agree with me. We recall seeing Brother Arshad walking in, because obviously I was there, I was 11, 12 years old or whatever it may be. And, we have got a unique experience and a relationship that we had. And, if you were, brother, to, go back a little bit, do you have, I'm sure you got so many different happy memories with the Shaykh. And I know this is difficult, and it's, it's like, choosing your favourite child probably, but do you have like one single favorite moment that you had with them?
Yeah, mashallah, the whole life is a favorite moment. That is every moment is a favorite moment, for me. But just for the benefit of the listeners, just to expound on their understanding and impart my understanding to them, is that since as you rightly said, since I've met them since 1993. When my first experiences of them was, like the brother said, they're inviting us to the gardens of paradise. That was the key message. Come to the gardens of paradise, as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. The zikr gatherings where we remember Allah Ta'ala, remember the Prophet, peace upon him. These are the gardens of paradise. And when they used to come from work wearing the blue overalls, I still fondly remember a normal person working for 12 hours in the cold frost outside, tired, hungry. They want to come home, have a rest, have some food, spend some time with their family. But alhamdulillah, it was their normal routine that for the sake of Allah they came to Peterborough, led these mehfils, and as soon as they walked through the door, we were waiting for them.
That's right.
and then we were sitting on the floor, as the brother mentioned, no furniture, sitting on the floor waiting earnestly for them to sit down, and they would lead, and they would just get changed and come in. And believe it or not, Brother Akil, all throughout my life and throughout the early years, just for the benefit of the listeners as well, this was their mamul, this was their routine. That I was personally, what I thought was you'd come in, there's a local thing, local gathering, but really what I saw over the years was actually, hang on, this was a person who was not just involved in Peterborough, but we got to meet fellow people with those kind of understanding, and all around the country, all youngsters were meeting together. They were every year.
That's right. Yeah,
we had a coach.
I agree. Not just that. I mean, I recall saying this to you at the around about the Janazah time. I recall going with them. We went on a train together. We went to Glasgow, and all that was just for the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. I was quite young, and we went all over the UK, all over the north, the south.
They started taking coaches to Bradford and Manchester and Keighley up north in Birmingham back in 1981. So probably a few years before many of us even born. And at the time they were on their own. They didn't speak a word of English, didn't know anybody, working 6-7 days a week. But they still had this energy, this enthusiasm.
That's right, yeah.
After coming back from work, wherever they met people, they said, look, I'll pay for the coach. You've got a free ticket, but please come with me. And today, mashallah, those people, those elderly people who used to go with them in the early 80s, now they're not only their children, but their grandchildren are joining us. For example, Bolton, 3rd of December 2017, we had 2 double-decker coaches, one for the brothers and one for the sisters. So it just shows that, alhamdulillah, how that event, those journeys and the events that they used to organise, how multiplied. And that's not only in Bolton and up north, but also the annual events they hold in Peterborough.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, you are absolutely right. So, for the benefit of our listeners, they started off. And is it right? Is 1981 where the marches started, or was it a little bit later?
The first march took place in 1984. There was an article in the Evening Telegraph, or whatever the name of that local newspaper was at the time.
Yeah.
So it's a front page heading, black and white picture, where international sheikhs attended, 300 local people. So it's the first time publicly there was a holy march, a peaceful parade in the streets of Peterborough. And the next day, when the sheikh went into work, and his colleagues, the non-Muslim colleagues, they saw him and said, you're a hero.
That's right. Hey, and do you remember actually? I fondly remember this. They used to come home from work, sit down in Methil, and they'd say, my work colleagues, they call me Joseph. And do you know why they call me Joseph? Because it means Yusuf.
Yes.
That's right.
And and they never said anything. They used to laugh with us.
That's right.
Oh, that's really brought back some memories. And you know what? The marches have continued. They've grown bigger. Yeah. And people actually, the local community expects them now as well. So, mashallah, you are absolutely right. And their legacy does live on. You are right. There are so many, not least, obviously with their family members, their children and their grandchildren. But there are so many people all across the UK in Peterborough who...
earlier on we had the brother Shaheen, who's a caller from Lincoln. And he used to travel, and he still does travel every Sunday with his family on our journey from Lincoln to Peterborough, just to spend a bit of time with the Sheikh. And the benefit of the guidance was that when Brother Shaheen went back to Lincoln and went and met his family, 16 members of his family and his inner circle have taken their shahada and accepted Islam.
Subhanallah.
So alhamdulillah, all that credit and the good deeds, the benefit, the rewards does go to Shaykh Mohammed Yousaf rahmatullah
alayhi. Yeah, and there's count. I recall going to the prison with them. They went to go see inmates and and offer counselling, and it was amazing times. I have to, first of all, can I say thank you to Brother Arshad for your experiences and your thoughts. I really appreciate that, and you really have brought back some memories there. And you almost gave days of dates of birth, birth of dates of. I can't believe you did that there, brother. People are gonna know how old we are. That's not good, is it? And to that end, one of our dear friends is now joined us in the studio, and Sufi Kazafi. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thanks for joining us. We don't have much time left of the show. Can you believe it has flown? But alhamdulillah, thanks for being with us in the studio. And I know you spend a lot of time with them. So what for the benefit of our listeners, what year did you actually join and started coming to the Methils?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here today. It's alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure because as a Sufi Yousaf Sahib, alhamdulillah, they meant so much to not only myself but mashallah, as brothers mentioned, to themselves. Mashallah, I just listen to everyone. Everyone's got some sort of memory of Hazrat Sufi Yousaf Sahib, whether it was by chance or a glance, them doing the grocery shopping or coming back from work. I feel I have the same kind of memories, just seeing them on the street. We were chilling out, on the corner with the boys, and they were like, "Beta, Tico," and normally our elders, they're like, "Okay, what are you doing? Telling us off." But Sufi Yousaf Sahib, they were like, "Beta, how are you? Are you okay?" We have zikr mehfils to come to them, and we used to be like so inspired by their character, So my memory goes back as far as I remember from a very, very young age. However, consistently, alhamdulillah, it's been about 15 years that I've been sitting with them on a very regular basis. And mashallah, I've heard so many stories about the Sheikh that brothers have mentioned even today. But what I really want to focus on at the moment is them in particular. I think, mashallah, this is going to be one of the many shows that we're going to be hosting about them. We're paying tribute to them because they say, when a person leaves the world, that's when their legacy starts.
That's right.
Alhamdulillah, this is going to be one of the many that are going to be here in the future. But what I really want to mention is how much of a great loss it is.
It is.
Not only for myself, but for the whole of Peterborough, because they've been here for 37, 40 years of their life. And alhamdulillah, on an international level too, because they know so many people on an international level. And the reason why I say that is because they were the heartbeat of Peterborough. Alhamdulillah, they made so many things happen. Everyone's got some sort of memory attached of Hazrat Khaja Sufi Yousaf Sahib.
Yes, that's right, absolutely.
And one thing I just want to mention is they were so persistent in what they used to do.
Definitely.
And that was a zikr of Allah.
Subhanallah. Very, very consistent and steadfast, weren't they?
And alhamdulillah, and reaching out to people.
Yeah.
On a consistent basis. Just reaching out to people and just inviting them to mehfils. And they had such a great aura about them.
Yeah.
And the presence. I remember one day my sister come from school and she was like, "My friend just sees Sufi Yousaf." And they were like, "Wow, this person looks so peaceful." And this was just a random, friend of my sister's. I just showed you that this person, alhamdulillah, they were a very, very spiritual individual.
Definitely.
They definitely, captivated my heart, And I could just say that they've helped me so much in my life to transform me into a better human being.
SubhanAllah. MashaAllah. Thank you very much. And you have everybody's been on Brother West. They've brought back fond memories of the Sheikh, and unfortunately we are running out of time. We're almost towards the end of the show. We're not, whatever we say tonight, it's not going to do it justice.
Absolutely.
But it's been an amazing experience having them in our lives. They have not just affected us as individuals, they've affected us as a collective, and the proof of that was at their funeral. There were people from all walks of life, all age ranges. It's arguably probably the biggest funeral in Fazan Medina Masjid.
100% without
It
doubt.
was certainly the most thought-provoking and emotional funeral I've ever been to.
Yeah, I mean, there were people all the way from Glasgow, from Blackburn, from Bristol, London, and people from all walks of life, different ages.
Yeah.
And the usually a funeral prayer lasts 15 minutes, but that day event started at 5 p.m. and with the recitation of the Quran, dhikr, speeches by the scholars, and the funeral prayer took place 8:15, and people didn't want it to end. They just said it was so spiritual. And I think it's a quote of Imam Malik rahmatullah, one of the great imams, and they said, how do you judge a person? Judge by his funeral, his last moment. And the great Sheikh, not only had one but three great funerals, and in Pakistan, in Shahadpur Sharif, and also in his home village of Tadiyal. Alhamdulillah, he leaves thousands of people who he's inspired. They'll carry on his legacy. The last few years of his life, when he was quite seriously ill, we thought that his standards are going to drop, maybe he's going to be relaxed a little bit. Well, alhamdulillah, he maintained those high standards throughout his whole life.
And I think that's a great point to actually end the show on, is if you were to ask me or anybody else actually to sum up their life in 3 words, it has to be focused, determined, and steadfast, and steadfast on the message of Islam and practicing. So we run out of time. Thank you very much, brothers, for your company, and all the listeners around the world.
Thank you for inviting
Special
us.
thank you for everyone in the studio and management of Islam Radio. Jazakallah khair. Up next is Empower Hour.